particular situation.
Question number 3, Patrick Harvey.
Thank you. Like MSPs across the chamber, I've been hearing from colleagues and constituents from around the country about the cuts local councils are now having to contemplate and the devastating impact if they're forced down that road. I'd like to tell the First Minister about one disturbing example. Ryan is 5 years old, lives in Falkirk and has severe autism. His mum wrote to explain that the family were happy when his nursery recommended sending him to a mainstream primary school because the support he needed was there. She said the first few weeks were challenging, but we were amazed at how his social interaction improved. He can now speak, he's very intelligent, and we are very proud to be his parents and want to thank the school for all their support. On Monday, my husband was pulled aside by his teacher who told us, as of that day, Ryan's support has been slashed from 2 hours a day to 2.5 hours per week. Presiding Officer, this is a young boy whose condition means that he can't go to the toilet himself. And now, in order for him to remain in school, his parents will have to go into his class twice a day to change him while he's in school. Those 2 hours a day of support were essential in giving him a chance to benefit from his education and to flourish. Ryan's parents have been told clearly that the school can do nothing about this cut. Ryan's mum says, not only is this disappointing and stressful, we fear it will completely undo all the work that's been done to give Ryan a routine. God forbid he has a bowel movement in between the allocated changing times. This slash of hours affects all kids with support needs, not just our son. Does the First Minister think that this situation is remotely acceptable?
First Minister.
Well, the situation that Patrick Harvey has described would not strike me as an acceptable one. I know how important it is for children with special needs in mainstream education to have the appropriate support. Obviously, Patrick Harvey's given a fair amount of detail there about the individual case, but I don't know all of the circumstances of Ryan's individual case. I will ask the Deputy First Minister and Education Secretary to look at that case and any wider issues that it raises, and he'd be happy to correspond with Patrick Harvey when he's had the opportunity to do so.
Patrick Harvey.
I appreciate the offer to correspond. Now, I understand the First Minister doesn't know all of the individual details, but the First Minister does know that there are 500 fewer additional support need teachers in Scotland's schools in 2018 than there were in 2010, because we've been making that case, as have others across the spectrum, for a long time now, despite the more than doubling of the number of children with additional needs. This situation and others in other local services is only going to get worse if more cuts are forced on our councils. ASN and every other local service will suffer. And new ring-fence funds for new policies imposed on councils will not make up for the cuts proposed to their core services. Now, since the SNP lost its majority, the Greens have been persistent in seeking positive changes to protect local services. But we don't demand the impossible. In fact, the government admits there's an extra £500 million in the coming year's budget because of the fairer tax plans we persuaded them to adopt last year. Why then should we saddle our councils with a staggering level of funding cuts which the First Minister knows will inevitably deny vulnerable pupils and so many other people in Scotland the support they need?
First Minister.
Well, before I come on to the budget point, let me just return to the ASN point, because it's an important issue. I mean, I had an exchange, I think, with Richard Leonard in the Chamber on this point a few weeks ago in terms of the overall numbers of staff in school working with children with ASN has increased. Obviously, teacher numbers generally have increased in the last couple of years, but I don't underestimate the pressures that are there when dealing with children with special needs of this nature. On the budget point, I'll say what I've said to Patrick Harvey and to others before. We put forward a draft budget. Patrick Harvey is right that there is resource available in that draft budget because of the tax decisions the government has taken. But we've allocated that resource. We've allocated that resource to the National Health Service, to local authorities, for example, for the rollout of the doubling of childcare. Now, the simple point I will make to Patrick Harvey and to others is if you want us to change the judgments about allocations we've made in order to put more money into one area of the budget, then there also has to be a discussion about which area of the budget that money should come from. That part of the discussion cannot be allocated, because what is not in the budget is £500 million of unallocated resource. Every penny that we have available to us has been allocated. So obviously we want to have budget discussions. We're prepared to have those budget discussions from parties across the chamber. But that has to be a discussion rooted in reality. We can't create money from nowhere. If more money is to go to one area of our budget, then we have to be honest about where we're taking that money from.
Question number